Verse 24 tells us that after this inquiry, it only lasted one verse. And these guys stopped thinking about Jesus, stopped thinking about his crucifixion, and began to think about themselves. Look at the text. They forgot about his arrest, and they began to think about themselves. Look at your neighbor and say, you can be in the midst of something pivotal, and instead of focusing on it, you focus your attention on trivial things that have little or no value. Your spouse is about to break down because they have not been getting from you what they need, and you're fussing. Your children are taking note of what you do for an example to follow, and you're displaying bad behavior. Note, the greatest thing in all human history was about to happen. History was about to be split in two, before Christ and after Christ. And these disciples had no idea how critical this time was. They're fighting over who would be the next bishop, who would be the next boss. Look at your neighbor and say, but while you're fighting, the devil is asking. Tell him, while you're fighting, the devil is planning. Could it be, husbands and wives, that while you're fighting, the devil is planning to wreck your home? Jesus said, you guys are acting like people without a covenant. Anytime you fight over position, you're acting like people who have no contract. Lord have mercy. For greatness is not in a title. Or take your neighbor by the hand and tell him greatness is not in a title, it's in a towel. Some of us are more title conscious than we are towel conscious. We got prophets without portfolios. We got bishops that don't have but 5 members. Greatness is not in a title, it's in a towel. Down through the quarters of history, we've measured greatness by the yardstick of accomplishments, possessions, and popularity. But Jesus said, he that is great among you, let him be the servant of all. Then in the 29th verse, Jesus had already determined something. If you just read the story, Jesus had already determined some stuff. They're fighting who was going to be the HNIC. And Jesus had already determined some stuff. Look at your neighbor and say, Jesus has already determined some stuff. So lay down your weapons. Stop having your clandestine meetings and your quiet telephone conversations. Jesus has already determined some stuff. Note what he said. I have already appointed you a kingdom. Implying an allotment. Assigning in course of distribution. Listen to the text. You're wondering who's going to be number one. The spirit of ambition took over. And Jesus said, I've already given you a place. You know, Pastor said that our church will be planning some churches. I'm wondering, Will I get one of them? Look at your neighbor and say, the Lord has already given you a place. Most of us are concerned about the place that we want rather than what God wants. You want to be an evangelist when God wants you to be a Sunday school teacher. You want to be a prophet when the Lord wants you to be a soul winner. You want to be a pastor when the Lord wants you to be a musician. We need to spend our time asking the Lord, Lord, what is it that you want for me? And we need to stop allowing people to inflate our egos and call us to positions that God never intended for us to have. Now, I know I'm preaching better than some of y'all responding. Somebody needs to say right now, not my will, but thine be done. Note. Look at the emotional. Sometimes when you preach a sermon, not only should you be aware of the history of the text, but the emotion of the text. Look, you guys are fighting for something, and I've already appointed it to you. What God, look at your neighbor and say, what God has for me is for me. This text lets us know that God makes determinations and gives us things that we don't even know about. So you don't have to fight for them, man or woman. Just thank God for putting you in the place that he has for you. So here we have, and I got to close here, you know. I don't preach as long as I used to preach. And I can't holler like I used to, but I'm going to try a little bit tonight. So here we have them. 12 disciples sitting at the table with Jesus, and he institutes the Eucharist. The disciples are fighting among themselves. And Jesus said, I've already appointed you a kingdom. He said, all of you are going to be big shots. You're going to sit on my throne and judge the 12 tribes of Israel. Note the clause. Simon. For all of you who are in seminary, let me make sure that I touch all areas. Most scholars argue that this clause is supplied. It is one of those spurious clauses lacking validity or authenticity. Scholars say in the older manuscripts it does not appear. But it is there because it is in keeping with other statements that the Lord made throughout the gospel. It is clear in this verse that the Lord is speaking to Peter. But it seems that Jesus is opening up a window. He's given a glimpse of what happens in the unseen realm. Betrayal, argument, competition among people, church folk fighting, and preachers. And now Jesus pulls back the curtain, saying, look at what's happening in the unseen realm. A duality governs our existence. The physical realm is the seen realm. The spiritual realm is the unseen realm. Note what the Curios said. Simon. Oh, why don't you just look at your neighbor and find out what their first name is and just call it 2 times. When I say Simon, you say their name. Simon. The Curios, the supreme in authority, the master, the boss. This is not a word that's coming from David. This is not the words of Solomon. These are not the words of Martin Luther King Jr. These are not the words of Reagan, Obama, or Trump. This term, curios, speaks of rank. It didn't say Jesus said, because that's his function. Lord have mercy. If a general says something, it carries more weight than a lieutenant. The curios, the boss, the ruler. Come on, y'all, talk to me. The one in charge. When you consider his rank and his authority, it goes to his credibility. Since he's the boss, he knows something that we don't know. It's important for us to understand this before we pull the text apart. The Lord said, this is the one. Look at the text. You look at the 31st verse. The Lord said, curios, the boss said, this is the one. To whom every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall confess. The Lord said, the one whom my father said, this is my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased. The Lord said, the one who is trustworthy. The Lord said, the one whose word cannot be impugned. The Lord said, the God that cannot lie. The Lord said, the one who is believable and credible. The Lord said, the one who we give credence and importance to. Lord have mercy. The Lord said, whom I've been listening to, and who directed me to come down here and start a church in 1990. The Lord said, the one in whom the psalmist said, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Not yet, sir. Look at your neighbor and tell him, I can't always, oh Lord, believe my friends. Why I can't always trust the government. I can't always even trust myself. But the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, take your neighbor by the hand and said, neighbor, this is not a time for daydreaming. This is not a time for arguing. This is not a time for fighting. Lord, the Lord said, Simon, this is not a time to be trivial and to be slothful and to be intoxicated. But he said, be alert, be alive, be watchful, be careful, look out, be on your guard. The devil is asking for you. I just wish I had a few people that can take somebody by the hand and say, Simon, call them by their first name. Simon, this is not a time to be fighting. This is not a time to be politicking. While you're fighting, the devil is asking for you. Oh, Lord, 12 guys sitting at a table And Jesus addresses one. 12 guys arguing. And Jesus addresses one. Many of you here know that there are members of your family and your friends that can do things and get away with stuff that you can't get away with. And the reason why is because God has chosen you for a great task. Simon, while you were fighting, Simon, while you are complaining, Simon, while you're talking about people, something is happening in the spirit realm. Do you hear me? Oh, Lord, I know you still got some chaff around you. I know that you haven't been prayed up all the time. I know that if people catch you at the wrong time, you'll cuss them out and cut their ears off. Simon, Simon, something is ready. I just wish I had a few people. Take your neighbor by the hand and say, something is ready to go down. Look around you. While you're fighting, the devil is planning. Don't be overoccupied or preoccupied with position, because we're limited and frail. We pass things that we should have seen, and we don't see them. We misinterpret a lot of things that we think is God, but is actually the devil. Simon, watch out. Satan asks for you. What does he want to do? He wants to sift you as wheat. Before you can put wheat in a sifter, you got to ground it to powder. If you put wheat in a sifter, before you ground it into powder, at best you're just frustrating it. Do you hear me? And that's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to frustrate you in your prayer life. Oh Lord, he wants to frustrate you in pastoring your church. Oh Lord, he wants to frustrate you in your marriage. But what did Jesus say? Jump up on your feet and say, what did Jesus say? I prayed for you. You got somebody who's praying for you. You got somebody who's praying for you. Hey! Oh, Lord. Hey! 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 Everybody stand. Jesus is praying for us. Not that you don't go through, because it's good for you. Trials, testings, and tribulation is good for you. It's the working of your faith. It builds character. But Jesus said, I prayed. I had to cut the message short, that your faith be not eclipsed. And he said this. He says, and when you come out, take your neighbor by the hand. Say, I know you've had some stuff that has rocked you, brought tears from your eyes. And you pastors, you know, You know the enemy is asking for you. Because if he can stop you, he can stop the church. He said, but he says, I prayed for you. That your faith is not eclipsed. And when you come out, just tell your neighbor, say, neighbor, I'm coming out. I got some stuff that, this is my deliverance night. This is my coming out. This is my coming out night. I got some stuff that's been messing with me. It's been trying to stifle my progress, but tonight I'm coming out. And tell them, not only am I coming out, you coming out. I look at him and say, I know you're wondering how I know you're coming out. Tell him, since I got your hand, when I come out, I'm bringing you along with me. Not just pull them and say, come on out of here. Come on out. Come on out. Yeah, not my shit time. Oh, yeah, man. The devil said, I had victory over Abraham. I had him lying. I had victory over Moses. I had him getting drunk. I had victory. Noah, I had him getting drunk. I had victory over Moses. Had him killing folk. I had victory over David. But you won't let me get to Job. You got some restrictions. Look at your neighbor and say, there's some stuff the enemy can do, but there's some stuff he can't do, so it's not open season on you. Lift up your hands. Keep those hands up for a moment. Shakaba. Otama. Na 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 na. Oh ho ho ho. Oh ho ho. Oh oh ho. Everybody lift up your hands. Oh